Welcome to the podcast, A Drink with Derek. Follow comedian Derek Richards on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe to his YouTube channel and watch all episodes of the podcast. Now grab a drink and join your host, Derek Richards.
Hey, it's Derek Richards here in Las Vegas. Welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you with me here today. Here in Vegas, where it's summertime. It's not really summer, but it might as well be. It's like 103 degrees out already, which is insane. I am excited to be back here, but happy to get back on the road. Going to be in the Midwest coming up here very, very soon. I'm going to be in, if you go to my website, DerekRichards.com, all the dates are on there. But I have some shows coming up here in, let's see, go ahead and pull these up. I'm going to be in Westchester, Ohio at Laurie's Roadhouse Live, which is a killer venue on June 8th. Be with Dave Landau at the Funny Bone in Des Moines, Iowa, June 10th and 11th. And then I'll be in Las Vegas at the Comedy Cellar at the Rio, June 27th to July 3rd. Also, when you're trolling the internet, grab my album, Double Down, recorded live at Laughing Comedy Cafe in Fort Myers. You can catch it on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, pretty much anywhere you go ahead and get your comedy stuff. Excited for today's guest. I am really pumped. This guy, I've been a fan of this guy. We've never actually met in person. I was introduced to his material on Twitter through a good friend of mine, comedian, radio personality, Dave Mencarelli up in Reno, Nevada, Lake Tahoe area. This guy here, comedian Josh Denny. He is originally from Philadelphia and now currently resides in Los Angeles. He has a couple of albums out called Honest Brutality and Social Hand Grenades. Back in 2017, Josh had a show on Food Network called Ginormous Food. You may have seen it. It was amazing. 35 million is to what the show premiered to. Ran for 3 seasons globally, syndicated in 14 countries. He's currently the host of Next Week Tonight on Censored.tv. He's also the host of the Jenkem podcast and a regular guest on the Anthony Cumia Show. His website, joshdennycomedy.com. He is here with us now on A Drink with Derek.
I'm a hungry man. That's what I am.
It's a table tipping,
It's almost the size of the entire table.
jaw unhinging, supersized food phenomenon.
Ginormous. Ginormous. Ginormous.
Josh Denny says, don't settle for enormous, go ginormous.
Speaking my language.
A hungry man.
Wow, look at this thing. It's a work of art.
Ginormous Food, Thursdays on Food Network.
I know, man. She always wants aggressive, sexual shit. She's like, hit me in the face. I'm like, I'm an out-of-shape, millennial, nonviolent white guy, okay? Can I just go in the other room and talk shit about your face on the internet? Can I do that? Are you creaming up for that? It got really crazy one night. She was like, fucking choke me. And I was like, whoa. Like, I wanted to be sexy, ladies, and I want you to have a good time, but I don't know my own strength, and I do not want to have that of mice and men moment. You know what I mean? Like, 1 minute I'm petting your hair in the barn, everything's cool. Next thing you know, I'm standing in a creek. Gary Sinise has a gun to the back of my head. All these pissed off ranchers, and I'm just like, tell me about the rabbits, George. You know what I mean? Can't go out like that. We're supposed to have our own farm. You guys didn't laugh at that joke. You did not do your 8th grade English homework, okay? I'm very well read. I happen to know that that was a classic American novel that was written and later directed by Gary Sinise, okay? He did that one, then he was Lieutenant Dan. Oh, that's good. You guys upset about the Oscars this year? Just this guy, yep. Doesn't even know where it's going. Yeah, just pissed. Apparently, too many white people in the movies this year. That's a thing. It caused outrage. I was cool with it, though. Like, because last year, 12 Years a Slave killed it at the Oscars, right? But you can't make that movie every year. Those movies get way too intense. Like, I remember watching it in the theater and being like, oh my God. Like, look at all of that land. Do you know what that would cost in LA? Jesus Christ. Like, who could possibly take care of that by themselves? Like, one family couldn't manage all that land on their own, and you can't afford to hire people because then, you know, you're depreciating your profits. Oh God, this is how it starts, isn't it? I have slaves now. I don't know, man. I'm not very sympathetic to minority rights. I don't get it. No, I don't think it's because I'm an asshole. That's probably also true. But it's just like, I get being a minority is tough, but my people are almost extinct, right? Yeah, she's with me. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, watch a Nature Channel. Be like, we hope you enjoyed our special on the endangered panda. Up next, we're going to talk about red-headed white people, because there's only 15 of them left in the fucking world. It's like me, this chick, Louis C.K., Amy Adams, and that doesn't even count. That's like a dye job. And stop doing that, ladies. I know you think it's hot, but we find it offensive. It's basically ginger blackface. That's another word I don't like either, ginger. And some of you guys are like, what's wrong with ginger, Josh? You guys say it to each other. Well, like, it's different when we say it to each other, okay? It's like when we say it to each other, we say ginger, okay? You say it with an A at the end. Like when y'all say it, you say ginger. It's very racist. Takes us back to a dark place, okay? Like if it's in a song, you're listening to a rap song and Nicki Minaj is on, and she's like, motherfucking Ginger's eating Lucky Charms and shit, then you can drop it. But don't think it's cool because I'm using it on stage and then I catch you using it with your friends after the show and you get all nervous and defensive. Like, dude, I'm not racist. I got a bunch of ginger friends. Some of my little cousins are half ginger, all right? I know your struggle, bro. Fucking potato famine, all right? You guys like, Josh, what do we use? I'll tell you, we prefer the term cinnamon American. Okay? Does not even matter if you were born in cinema. It is about our heritage. Thank you, guys. You guys have been great.
Your next album should be called Ginger Blackface.
Yeah, there you go. That would be a good one.
Josh Denny, good to see you, man.
Hey, good to be here. Good to be here. I actually had an idea that if I did another CD, another album, that I would want to copy Nas's Untitled album cover. If you remember, it was like his back, and then it looked like there were all these lashings with the N of Nas in his back. And I was like, it'd be cool if I did that, but with sunburn, so I could just use sunscreen on my back. And then, I'll just call it the SPF album, right?
That won't get any traction on the web at all whatsoever.
Yeah, that won't rile them up.
No, you are the crown prince of riling people up. Like I was saying in the intro, a good friend of mine, comedian radio guy Dave Macarelli up in Reno, Lake Tahoe area. We were hanging out, and this is how I first got introduced to you about a year ago. And he was on his phone. He's laughing, and he goes, "Dude, do you know this guy Josh Denny?" And I said, I heard the name. I said I wasn't too familiar. And he goes, "Dude, you have got to read." He goes, "I read his tweets, and I immediately think of you." And he started showing them to me, and I died laughing. So damn funny, so biting, so sarcastic, so well crafted. And then when you hear all the idiots that respond in the threads afterwards, it just absolutely cracks me up. So I highly recommend any viewer, listener of the podcast to go to Josh's Twitter feed and follow it. It is absolutely hysterical.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I kind of go back. I put a lot of stuff on Twitter. Like, I've been on there for a long time, and it's definitely my social media of preference. But if you follow me on Twitter, you'll get a mix of wildly absurd comedy. You'll get some hot takes. You'll get opinions that you either will agree with or not agree with, and and everything in between.
No, I love it. A couple of random questions here to start off. I'd like to throw this out here to guests as a little wild card. So let's no wrong answers. Just answer them any way you see fit. This line never works when trying to pick up women.
Hello? No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know. I was never a lines guy. Lines guy. I can tell you a line that always works picking up women is a line of cocaine. That probably does the trick most times. But yeah, I don't know.
Perfect.
I don't know about pickup lines, right? Like I think now the best pickup lines that you can have for most women is just pandering to whatever nonsense that they like. So I think now if I were single again, it's been a long time, it's been 10 years, but if I were single again, I would imagine the easiest way to pick up women is just to be like, I think you should be allowed to have 246 trimester abortions, and I think we need 2 women presidents. Honestly, I think 1 is not enough. We should have 2 to make up for all these years of the patriarchy.
Done. Here's another one. If I had Elon Musk money, I would blank.
I do nothing. I do absolutely nothing. I wouldn't try to benefit the world in any way. I would do a lot of spite spending. You know what I mean? Like did you ever watch that Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry David when he made a whole spite coffee shop to spite another guy? Like I would do stuff like that. Like I would,
I love it.
yeah, I would truly be a petty supervillain. I wouldn't try to like poison the water supply or take over the world. I would do like the most petty, terrible things in the world. Like I would buy comedy clubs and turn them into homeless shelters. It's just random stuff.
I've played some of those places where I think they have become homeless shelters. So
They're
I'll send you some addresses.
Yeah, the average Los Angeles open mic is basically a homeless shelter with a PA system.
If a woman did blank, I would immediately put on my pants and leave.
Speak.
What's great is all your answers are so on brand with who you are, which is absolutely,
it's the truth. It's not contrived.
It's
not contrived. Yeah, it's funny. I was having this conversation with a friend the other day about how many women have like violent fantasies and fetishes, and I was just like, yeah, I've never participated in that and never will. Call me crazy, but there's nothing sexy to me about the idea of my life being instantaneously ruined everywhere. So anytime I've been in a situation with a woman back when I was single and things would escalate and she'd be like, no, stop, I'd be like, all right, bye. And I would leave immediately, or I would ask them to leave immediately. It's like the old Louis C.K. bit when he was talking about, he told a story on one of his specials about he went home back to his hotel with a comedy club waitress, and they were fooling around, and she was like, no, stop. And then he did, and she left. And then she later texted him or something and was like, why didn't you keep pushing? And he was like, what was I supposed to just rape you in hopes that you would be cool with it? You know what I mean? Like, kind of fun foreshadowing for Louis C.K. back then. If you go back, a little interesting piece of history.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, because you never know where the boundaries are. And now, even today, more so than ever with, having your smartphone 3 feet away from you at all times.
Well, it's also
things
just
can take a drastic turn.
It's also just this insanity of posthumous rape. Like there literally are situations where women are like, yeah, 13 years ago when I fucked this guy after we hung out at Applebee's for 2 hours, I decided I'm not for it now. So go get him.
Yeah, I know. That's how for some odd reason you were damaged for all these years, and you were holding that beach ball underwater for so long, and now all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this guy's now on the Forbes 500 list. Hang on.
Yeah. These women think sex crimes in Me Too work like Bill and Ted's time machine. They're just like, trash can. Remember a trash can, and then it just falls on the guy's head, and they steal his stuff and run away. That's how women think that sex crime accusations work now.
So funny, so wrong. What's your best drunk story? A drink with Derek. What is your best drunk story, fellow Irishman? You have got a fellow ginger. I'm not gonna speak of you in racist slander terms and say ginger. Yeah. As a ginger, What is your best your best drunk story that you can recall?
Yeah, I don't drink, so that makes me an anomaly as a ginger and as an Irishman. But I could tell you I have tons of stories about other people being drunk in my presence. I Uber drove in Los Angeles for many years up until the pandemic. And it was always kind of like a part-time gig, and there were so many stories of like driving home, drunk celebrities, that I could probably write a book about it. And some were funny and some were scary. Like I wrote a story on my old website. It's not up on my new website, but I wrote a blog about stopping a rape that I later found out the perpetrator was like the brother of a very prominent celebrity, a very prominent actor and like studio head. So this whole family is like a big family in Hollywood. And then there was another time where I drove Clint Eastwood's daughter home from a bar, and she forced me to order Taco Bell, and then she ate all of my Taco Bell. So she's dead. But other than that, no, I'm kidding.
You don't eat a man's Taco Bell. I don't care if you're Clint Eastwood's daughter or not.
Yeah, listen, she started putting my burrito in my mouth, and I was like, "Go ahead, make my day."
Push it up. Never mind. Not gonna say. You're from Philly, now living in LA. What pushed that move to go to LA as opposed to going to New York?
I don't know. I think so. I had the choice, actually. I was living in Minnesota at the time, which was where I lived. I graduated high school in Minnesota, moved there in high school, and then lived there for about 11 years. And I was working for Crocs Shoes. I was one of the first retail execs when they did their startup in 06. And in 09, they had two open markets. I could have taken either the New York market or the LA market, and I just sort of picked it based on weather and like I think the romanticization of New York that people have is like you have to not grow up on the East Coast. Like growing up in Philly, like New York was always like this shitty, uptight, politically correct, overtly liberal, just like not cool, not blue collar city. Like, and this is, keep in mind, I grew up in the 90s and then early 2000s. So it wasn't like I got to see the cool, gritty Ramones punk rock New York. It was just like the awful New York. And so, and of course, like I graduated in 01, 3 months before 9/11. So you can imagine I was like, maybe I'll go to Los Angeles when they gave me
Good
the option
call.
to transfer.
You put it in that perspective. Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah, so even though it was 8 years later, I was just like, yeah, there haven't been a lot of, national terrorist problem. You just have to worry about earthquakes out here in Los Angeles. And of course, little did I know that the world would get crazy and that now you just see acts of terrorism in Los Angeles every day.
Yeah, no kidding. How did you get, because did you start comedy in Minnesota or did you start in Los Angeles?
No, I started in Minnesota. I started in 2007, and then I moved to LA in 2009. So basically, like the first 3 years of stand-up, I was in the Midwest, and I did the road very early. So I would do like your Tribble runs and your, just we worked for a company in the first year I was doing stand-up called Entertainment Shack, which was like a couple male strippers out of Tennessee that they had all these like bars and rooms that they booked male strippers in, and then the venues would always be like, what else you got? We want more entertainment. And so they started booking comedy. And so like in the first year of doing stand-up, I think we did something like 100 shows for those guys everywhere, every small town bar in the Midwest I've done comedy at. So I kind of jumped in with both feet. And then I really didn't get more into club comedy until I moved to LA. I kind of avoided the clubs a lot when I started in Minnesota, because the clubs in Minneapolis and in the Midwest were very alt. Like they were very like one-liner, like everybody was trying to be Mitch Hedberg, and that wasn't my style. So I was always more of like a bar and pub comedian than a comedy club comedian.
Well, now your stuff here, your style has, I mean, if people follow you on social media and they see the comedy clips that you post online here, has your comedy always had the slant that you have now? Or did it evolve into this?
Yeah, I think I've always had this idea, even subconsciously. I think what drew me to stand up is the idea that I can use people's own thoughts and opinions against them. I don't think I really sharpened that and understood that about my voice.
That's your superpower.
Yeah, I don't think I really understood that until a few years ago. And now I actually really try to put a lot of thought into writing that way so that there is this sort of general consistency to most of what I'm saying that's offensive is actually not what I'm saying. It's what I'm reminding you that you already think. And so there's a cleverness to that. And it's also just a sort of born out of necessity because there are so many comedians and there are so many ways of doing material. And I have found that even though it doesn't always work and even though every joke isn't a home run, I do find that is a style that not many people even attempt to, sort of like make jokes that poke fun at what I'm not saying, but we all kind of understand based on it. It's sort of like meta and next level in comedy in a way. And I definitely think I've been guilty of maybe being too smart with some premises or too ahead of my time with some premises. And then it takes, society or whatever to catch up to like that idea. But a good example is I had a tweet go viral over the weekend and I used kind of Twitter kind of like an open mic. Like originally when you were restricted to 140 characters, the idea for me was if I can't get the concept of a joke into a tweet, then it's probably too broad of an idea and you got to get right to the funny very quickly. So I always used it as a way to hone my thoughts. To say if I can get the idea into 140 characters and it's funny in that, then I can expound on that and expand on it and make it a longer bit or a bigger bit. But if it didn't ever gain traction on Twitter, I would usually throw it away. And so I kind of developed that as a style and really used Twitter as an open mic. But this weekend I put a thing that's been in my notebook for a long time. And it was very relevant to the current abortion discussion, which is, basically women like, yeah, go ahead and dump in me all you want. It's just a clump of cells if we have to get rid of it. Meanwhile, that same woman will be like, who wants to adopt one of these 30 dogs I'm fostering? Because these things are precious. And if you don't give them a home, they're going to put them down. And that would be horrible. So it's literally just highlighting the hypocrisy of, this idea and by the way, this is not like just liberal women. It's a lot of women who in some strange mental gymnastic compartmentalization believe they have all kinds of like exceptions to where they can just not think of abortion as ending a life. But if you kick their dog, oh my God, they'd want you shot and executed on the spot.
Yeah, they turn into John Wick.
Yeah, and it's like, and then, it's amazing to me the cognitive dissonance that people displayed in responding. The funny thing is people will come at my takes like they're jokes, or they'll come at my jokes like they're takes, which is an intellectually dishonest way of trying to take down your point of view. But people will come at me and go, well, that's easy. Dogs are already alive and a fetus isn't anything. And I just go like, yeah, the Constitution doesn't have any laws in it for dogs. Hate to tell you. I don't think there's a bit about dogs at all in the Constitution. And yet we treat dogs like they're the most precious things on earth. I have a part of this bit when I go into a longer thing, when I do live shows, is I talk about the fact that if black people, trans people, and gay people want better treatment in this country, they should start identifying as dogs. Wear a collar, put a stick in your mouth, and you will be amazed at how well you're treated in this country. Hump the occasional leg, eat your food out of a dish, bite an occasional stranger, and I'm telling you, you'll never be treated better.
Drop a deuce on the neighbor's lawn,
yeah,
and you will be worshipped.
Yeah, anybody who talks about white privilege has never seen what a dog's life is like. If aliens landed tomorrow, they'd think dogs were the master race.
That is so funny. I want to pull up some of your other tweets. That tweet, by the way, which is one that I was going to pull up anyway because it just cracked me up. Sean, go up and pull up some of the other tweets that we have. And like I said, there's so many funny stuff. This one cracked me up the other day that you had posted. Not even halfway through his first term, Joe Biden is the most useless president in American history, and one of them was in a wheelchair. I'm going to tell you right now, I had to wipe my screen off of my phone from the coffee that I sprayed on it. I was laughing my ass off.
See, this is a great example. It's like, this is a perfect example of paring an idea down to like one sentence. And if you can make it funny in one sentence, I think you have the root of a good bit. But yeah, this idea to me was funny because I realized this as I was researching presidential terms. And obviously I'm talking about Roosevelt. And he actually had 3, I think almost 4 terms, right? Didn't he do the part of a 4th term? And then they were like, we got to put a stop to this. Like, we have to put a cap on how many terms, presidents can run. And I was just like, and in hindsight, a lot of people regard him as one of the greatest American presidents of all time. And the guy was disabled. You know what I mean? And it's kind of similar because they used to do stuff to try to hide that he was in a wheelchair because they were afraid we would look weak to other nations. So that's what the blanket over him all the time was about. Like, they literally thought, if we just throw a blanket over him, nobody will see the wheels and the squeak. They won't hear the squeaking mechanism underneath of his body. And it was like,
which is how dumb they think the American people are, and how dumb the American people actually are. That, when you look at all the things that all the cloaks and the blankets. I mean, that blanket over Roosevelt's wheelchair is just such a metaphor for Americans and just how dense we are and how stupid we are, and how easy someone can try to, hey, look, like, hide under the table during a nuclear blast and everything will be fine. I mean, there's still so many idiots out there that fall for all these different cloaks and shrouds and smoke and mirrors.
And it's almost 100 years later when we're propping up another corpse, pretending that he's a legit president and isn't compromised in any way and doesn't jeopardize our national security every time he speaks.
Yeah, his little stint on Taiwan, when they were asking him about that, and he's like, "Hey, you gonna react militarily?" And he just, yes. I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah, well,
it's not gonna go well.
Also, just listen, I don't really hang out with a lot of billionaires, Derek. But if you gave $40 billion to somebody I didn't like, you and I would now be enemies, just off the basis of that. So the idea that we're just going like, oh, they're a nuclear power with nukes, let's give $40 billion to the bitch who's trying to leave them. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it would be like if you gave $40 billion to your best friend's ex-wife. It's like, whoa, dude, what are you doing? You're like, nah, man. Like, listen, we really are trying to stay out of it, but she's out on the street. I got to do something. No, you don't have to do anything.
That's a great perspective. Let's pull up another tweet here. This one here. What's the other one that we have here, Sean? This thread is hilarious, and I only have the one screenshot here, but I encourage everybody to go on Josh Denny's Twitter feed to May 12th and follow the thread down here. Being a woke comedian honestly seems exhausting. You have to spend all day on Twitter pretending Elon Musk is bad after you and all your friends bought his cars for the last decade. And it goes on, and you have another about 5 or 6 more pages that you put on there. So well crafted, so well put together, so funny. And the responses that people gave you on there were hilarious.
Yeah, there's I have a lot of fans who will chime in with really funny, add-ons and things like that. But it's almost more fun to see, how outraged people get over these ideas and how much they'll try to combat like every single one of your sort of talking points. Like one of them was just as simple as like, you have to pretend that Joe Rogan isn't funny and that Patton Oswalt is. And it was amazing how many people were just like, Joe Rogan's not funny. And I'm just like, yeah, subjectively, maybe not to you, but when a guy is selling out arenas and has the largest podcast in the entire world, I think it's safe to say he's pretty funny. I think it's hard to argue objectively. People find him funny and interesting, right? It's like it's like when you see a model on the cover of a magazine and somebody walks by and they go, I don't even think she's pretty. And you go, well, obviously you're in the minority of that. Did you ever think of that you might be the only one who doesn't think she's pretty?
How is it for you being where you are to have the point of view that you do when you go on stage, and just you as a person, even on your social media? Because I mean, as brutally honest and the right slanted take that you have, where you're at in California, I mean, you are in the beehive of liberalism. How does that affect you as far as being on stage and trying to get sets at clubs? I mean, do you notice any kind of pushback?
Oh, there's definitely pushback. It's not really open. I know there's a lot of places that just won't have me based on the fact that I mean, I got outright banned from the club that clip you aired was in, West Side Comedy Theater. I had run a show there for 5 years. And when I had a Twitter controversy blow up in 2018, when I basically said, like, let's not pretend that racism to white people is any better or more noble than racism towards black people, by comparing the kind of phraseology used for both in different times and different eras. They canceled my show. And when I talked to the owner of the club, I was like, why are you canceling this show? And they go, well, we just want to promote an environment that is conducive to diversity and inclusion. And I go, like, that's funny, because my show on your show my show at your club was one of the only ones that always had comics of color, women, gay people. Like, I ran a show called The Darkest Hour there, which was about people mining their darkest personal experiences for material. So they would either tell dark stories or they would do their darkest, most messed up jokes. And I specifically, to show that everybody has that kind of stuff and can make it funny, we made it a point to always have like super diverse lineups. So I was like, well, if our lineup is diverse, then what's the problem? And he literally just kept repeating it like the lawyer was in the room with him. Like, yeah, we just want to promote an environment with, that encourages diversity and inclusion. And I'm just like, okay, so you're just completely full of shit. And so, yeah, I'm not a regular at any of the clubs here. And if I was, that status probably would have been removed with the different stuff I've said online. But the reality is this, like, when I do shows, regardless of the climate of Los Angeles, people laugh. Like, and that's the thing. You probably experienced this being on the road. The people that get outraged about material, they're not buying tickets. They're not in comedy clubs. They're not there. No. So it's sort of like, we're watching a bunch of people on the internet chastise, bitch about, and condemn an art form that they've never participated in. And that's what's kind of wild, is that so much of the discussion around comedy in the zeitgeist and in the media is all being had by people that aren't comedians, and they aren't active comedy fans. And so you'll find, like, if you get out, even if you make jokes that are against somebody's point of view, which happens to me all the time, if the joke is funny enough, I'll laugh. If somebody makes a pro-abortion joke that's really funny, I'll laugh at it, right? I don't have to agree with it. That's what comedy is. And I try to write stuff that is anti abortion that I think is funny. And like the comparing it to the dog adoption, or I have one where I talk about how we've turned everything. It sort of references my time at the Food Network, how we've turned everything into food. Like, I'm glad they didn't ask me to host a show like Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern, because if they want me to pretend that a baby bird egg is food, I'm not going to do it, right? And so what I just think it's so funny that so much of the sort of rhetoric around comedy is all being done by people who really have no firsthand experience with it. And I tell this to comics all the time. People go, why don't you just leave LA? Because that's what a shittier comedian would do. I have to be here to get sharp. I have to be here writing jokes in the face of opposition of those that don't agree with me. I think that's what makes, and this isn't a condemnation of Crowder. I think Crowder's hilarious and funny. But I think if Crowder's show was done in LA, it would be that much sharper and that much more crisp and that much more hard hitting, because you're constantly being faced with opposition. Whereas if you just go to a safe space and everybody agrees with you, it's gonna dull your edges a little bit. And so I think comics like me have to be in places like New York and LA, and I think we have to be if you're going to be a counterculture comedian, you got to be counter to the culture. You can't just go to a new place where everyone agrees with you.
Interesting take on that. Yeah, that's I didn't really think about it in that perspective, but that makes complete sense for you to be immersed in that environment and to be, like you said, doing your material in the face of those people. But I think a lot of times too, when you're at a comedy show or a live performance, it's just people listen for buzzwords, and for some reason, and they won't listen to context. They don't listen to how it was presented. They just, hang on, he said rape. therefore he is promoting rape. It's like, no, that's not what I said at all. You didn't hear anything that I said before or afterwards. And so I think the outrage seems to stem from something that's just hidden deep inside of somebody, where all of a sudden, you're on stage and you're doing an hour-long set, and 35 minutes of your stuff is insanely incorrect, and then all of a sudden the most innocuous comment that you make all of a sudden stirs outrage in somebody. Like, I'm done. This guy's an ass.
Well,
it's like, well, wait a minute. What?
I'll tell you a little fun story. Here's a good example of that. I did a show for the American Freedom Alliance here in Los Angeles a year ago, and I actually just saw the woman who runs it at the walkaway event that I attended on Saturday. And she even remembered that this happened. But one of the nights, it was a 2-night event. One of the nights I had one of the best sets I'd had in a while, which was great because I don't think I had gone on stage in 18 months. This was like coming right out of the pandemic. And I do a set. It's like a 20-minute set. 18 minutes of it goes great, right? And then I do this bit about time travel, and I go, everybody wants to kill Hitler, but I want to kill a guy named Phil Kinzer. Phil Kinzer invented bowling bumpers. And I don't want to go too in depth in that part of the bit, but essentially it's the idea that the guy who invented bowling bumpers did more to destroy the future of civilization than Hitler did. And then the tag at the end of that joke is, why do we never presume that the reason that nobody travels back in time to kill Hitler is because maybe that Hitler himself was sent back in time to stop something way worse, like the Jews, right? And it's obviously a hilarious left turn, unexpected. Like, I'm obviously being absurd for the point of being funny. And the entire audience was conservative Jews. And they immediately, it was like a record scratch, like, what? And it's like, obviously, with this whole premise of this joke is centered around the concept of time travel, right? So obviously we're in the land of make-believe. And the reason I said that the worst thing you can stop is the Jews is because that's the last fucking thing you'd think that I would say. That's why it's funny. And so they got so tight, and it was like, you can't even suspend disbelief enough to enjoy that is the last thing that you ever thought I would say. You just heard Jews and went, oh, he's doing something about us. And it's amazing how like everyone has their sacred cows regardless of context. And that just makes comedy less fun.
No, it really does. I agree 100%. You had I want to ask you about this. You had a cool run on Food Network with your show Ginormous Food. And I remember seeing it when it was on TV. Great show. How did that start?
Yeah, I had done a food-centric podcast, like where I would just take comics and friends and musicians and actors out to a lunch, and we would just talk about food. And so the production company that ended up doing Ginormous Food, they found me randomly on the internet and reached out. And of course, I ignored like their first 3 attempts because I just thought it was some internet troll like messing with me. And then it turned out to be real, and it was this very big whirlwind, something I was very lucky and grateful to get to do. Like, it was the first show I ever got asked to help develop. We developed the show. It was the first pilot I ever shot. It got picked up immediately, went to series and ran for 3 seasons. That never happens. Like, you can listen to a guy like Bert Kreischer talk famously that he pitched like 30 shows and did 30 different pilots before he sold anything. And so it was just this very crazy thing. And we kind of jumped in with both feet, and it was fun. I mean, it ran in the 3 seasons in 14 different countries. You know, we were crushing shows like The Daily Show. I mean, we were one of the highest viewed shows in cable on Friday nights. And then, as naturally what happens with these things is you get back into renegotiations with the network, and they want more control and I want more money. And if you can't come up to something that makes sense for both sides, then, you know, that's when you kind of stop working together. So it is a common misconception that I was fired by the Food Network. You know, we just didn't come to a contract renewal agreement and then went our separate ways. And then about 6 months later was when I started pissing people off on the internet en masse. And then there was sort of this automatic drawn conclusion that the reason that I wasn't still on the Food Network was because of that tweet and that Twitter firestorm. But that ship had sailed like 6 months before that.
Well, what was so funny is because you call yourself the most canceled comedian. And I want to go ahead and pull this thing up here. This is the This was on a website. Sean, pull this up, the clip. I think this is on mashed.com. And this was the, because you had done a tweet talking about, I think it was talking about abortion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this was back in September.
September of 2021. So this was just this past September, correct? And then,
yeah.
So now all of a sudden, this is, rather, what prompted them was a tweet that George Takei dubbed with steeped irony, just charming. In this tweet, Josh Denny tackled the point that many women are not aware of their pregnancy within the first 6 weeks. Only a slur for members of the sex work industry. I love how.
So Derek, here's a great example. Why, when I say the word whore, do you think I'm talking about members of the sex work industry? Because that's not what I meant. I have no problem with people in the sex work industry. So I didn't call sex workers whores. You just did. That's the kind of comedy that I do. So this is so interesting to me and this is why I refuse to ever apologize for anything on the internet, because you're never apologizing for what you said. You're apologizing for their bad faith interpretation of the meaning of your words and not actually what they were. So I think it's so funny that this says a slur for members of the sex work industry. No, whores are not sex workers. Whores generally don't make any money for being loose, but let's go on.
No, exactly. They're just random bar skanks. But no, I'm with you 100%. Listen, someone in the sex work industry is a prostitute making money for providing a service. So
yeah, I would never use the word whore to describe a sex worker. I refer to them as entrepreneurs. So there you go. You guys are
entrepreneur. Whores with a 401k.
Yeah, those are small business owners with definitely opportunities for expansion and growth.
So apparently, Discovery, which owns Food Network, does not seem to take kindly to such public displays of your beliefs. It's likely that Alton Brown's election night fever tweets about the probability of Trump ushering in a Holocaust had cost him his job, for instance. Do
you see what they do there? Do you see what they do there? So I wasn't fired by the Food Network, and this is important to give context. This was in response to the fact that even with every Twitter controversy I've always had, the Food Network has never made a comment. And one of the funniest things why I call myself the most canceled comedian on the internet is just because host of Food Network Ginormous Food is in my bio. Even 4 years after the show has been off the air, people still immediately look at the bio and at Food Network to have me fired without even knowing that the show's been off the air for 4 years. So I leave that there, and it's a fun running thing for my Twitter fans that people do this every time, knee jerk, without doing any research or due diligence to find out that you're trying to get me from fired from a job that I haven't had in 4 years. That is the peak of lunacy by the left and people on social media. And so the fever, this thing swelled so much to a point where Food Network had to make a statement, and they said, we don't agree with Josh Denny's views, and we haven't worked with him in some time, and we regret having ever given him a platform. And they didn't specify which views. They just said his views do not represent that of Food Network. So they kept it very loose. But do you see how publications write stuff like this so that they can avoid being sued for defamation? Because they're just saying they don't take kindly to public displays. Remember when Alton Brown got fired for what he said? It's like that. And it's like, well, I was never fired. So now you're trying to create this idea in the mind of the reader that I too was fired for something I said on social media. And that never happened.
So stupid. Unbelievable. Sean, thanks for bringing that up. That's what was your favorite food experience from the show that you recall?
Oh man, we ran a list. We ranked them the entire time. We did about 100 restaurants, and the best one ever, and I was sad to say, casualty of the pandemic, not open at the moment, but I believe they're trying to reopen. A place called Pepper Fire Hot Chicken in Nashville. Really awesome place. And they made this dish called the Battle Royale, which is like a supersized version of something they make called an Applejack, which is a deep fried grilled cheese with Nashville hot chicken on top of it, with apple pie filling on top of that. And I know that sounds insane. And when I was there, I was like, that's insane. And that's going to be disgusting. And I'm telling you, Derek, I took a bite and I didn't stop eating it. And everyone on my crew took a bite and didn't stop eating. We ate like 4 of these things throughout the filming that day. And everybody on the crew, all the way till the end of the show, would be like, all right, if we could go back and eat one more thing again, what would it be? And it was that Applejack from Pepper Fire Hot Chicken. So anybody who, if you want to get wild with it in the kitchen, mix those 3 things. Do a deep fried grilled cheese, throw some hot chicken on top of it, and apple pie filling. And I'm telling you,
apple pie filling on top of that.
On top of the hot chicken. It sounds insane, but I'm telling you, it works.
I did not see that combination coming. That actually sounds really good. The sweet and the hot, and then the cheese component to it. Now, do you cook yourself?
Yeah, I didn't actually a lot before the show, but I always tell people you can't spend this much time in kitchens with great chefs and cooks without like picking some things up and taking an interest in it yourself. So I really got into cooking and everything from the show, and I do a lot in the kitchen now.
So now I come to your place. What's the dish you're going to serve me? What's the Josh Denny special?
Yeah, I got a couple of them. I do like a blackened tilapia that's really, really good. I do a couple of different pasta dishes that are good, but one of the best things I make is I've done 2 of them. I've done a banana cheesecake and a pumpkin pie cheesecake, and those are probably, the 2 things that I've made that people are like, this is amazing or this is incredible. So I don't really fancy myself a baker because it's too precise. I can't stand it. But apparently,
there is a science to that. You can't improvise a whole lot in baking. That's for sure.
Yeah, which is like totally not my style. Like the thing I love about cooking over a stove or whatever is that you can just do it as you go.
Yeah, throw random crap in there as needed.
I also do a jambalaya scramble that's pretty incredible. So I'll do, like, a lot of times what I'll do is if I make like jambalaya or gumbo, and I have extra, I will heat that up with eggs in the morning and mix it all together with rice and eggs and everything, and it's amazing. It's another thing that you think would be a weird combination, but it works.
I love it. Going back to where you call yourself the most canceled comedian, how many times have you seen, can you think of off the top of your head, where you have seen the assault of woke leftists coming at you?
Oh, it's all the time. That's what I tell people when people go, well, you haven't even been deplatformed yet. It's like, no, when I say the most, it's about attempts, right? But I also have the best takedown defense in the history of the social media and stand-up comedy. I'm basically the Khabib Nurmagomedov of social media takedowns. You will not get me on the cage. So yeah, it's I got a lot of people trying to take me down. I stuff every one of them, and it's because I'm very good at adhering to the terms of service, so that I don't actually ever break the rules in being naughty. That's probably the only example. And then the other thing too is I do think there's an element of I'm just big enough but not big enough to where I think Twitter likes to use guys like me as controlled opposition. So when people that are big, like my boss and friend Gavin McInnes, go, why am I off the platform? What are you, censoring conservatives? They go, no, look, we got Josh Denny. He's fine. He's over here. But it's like, it's because I have 100,000 followers, not 2 million. You know what I mean? So I think they use guys like me and you, Derek, to sort of be able to point and go, no, we've got conservatives. Look, we got, but obviously they're not doing anything to sort of amplify our voices in any way other than negatively, right? Like it's not accidental that the only times you and I have gone viral on Twitter is when people are trying to take us down, and not when we make really well articulated points that most people agree with, right? Like I had a thread today where I said, we can talk about social media, like we could talk about guns, we could talk about mental health, but I think we need to talk about the fact that we have this device, this technology called social media that allows people to peer into each other's lives at a level that creates such a vast amount of depression. And I don't think poor people should be able to see what rich people are doing every day. I think there's a social consequence to that. And just like I said with like incel culture, this wasn't a thing until people that don't have love in their lives could sit there and look at those who do have love in their lives every day. And I think it creates this immense amount of feeling of insecurity, of feeling less than. And I think that manifests in horrible, evil, violent ways. Now, that's a really well articulated point that nobody came back at me against. And everyone loves the thread, and that will never trend, and it will never go viral. So there definitely is. Yeah, and it's like, so that's what we're facing. That's what guys like you and I are facing, is because of the team we're on. Anytime we do attempt to be unifying or even nonpartisan in our messaging or our jokes or our thoughts, that's all going to get silenced because it doesn't fuel the culture war.
No, it doesn't. And I think one of the things you mentioned about mental illness and depression and things like that too is when you go back to the horrible shooting that just happened in Texas, and no one ever says. Everyone always points to the guns, and I think I posted a tweet one time years ago during one of the 50 million mass shootings that have happened in this country. I go, nobody looks in the medicine chest of these people. These loons that go and grab an AR-15 and go shoot up a school or a church or a mall or whatever. Nobody is taking 2 seconds to look in there. No one ever addresses the fact that this person was taking too much of this medication or too much of that medication, because then it goes back to the whole pharmaceutical thing where it's like, whoa. We don't want to go ahead and piss off any of these people because every other commercial that's running on television is about some pharmaceutical crap that they're trying to shove down your pie hole.
Yeah, well, first of all, I won't go down conspiracy lane on this, but I think it's very interesting that we're having a bunch of mass shootings 6 months out from an election where the Democrats were about to get creamed and they had no platform. And now we're talking about a woman's right to choose and gun control. Again, miraculous, the timing. It's almost as if it's happening right in time to be politicized. But so without diving in too much into that, I'll say every single shooter that has committed one of these atrocities has been on SSRIs for the most part. There could be one or two that I'm letting slip through the cracks, but almost every one of them is on SSRI medication. And Joe Biden, as the irresponsible grandpa weekend at Bernie's corpse that he is, went on a press conference yesterday or a couple days ago and talked about fighting the gun lobby. The gun lobby gave $16 million to politicians the last election cycle. Do you know how much pharmaceutical companies gave? About $380 million. And to your point, you're not seeing gun commercials all over TV. You're seeing pharmaceutical commercials all over TV. So what a great way to look over here, everybody. What a great magic trick to pull the wool over people's eyes that we have a gun problem in this country when we absolutely have a problem with medical and government overreach, corporatocracy, the overprescription of unnecessary medications, and absolute corruption. The idea that during the pandemic, a congressman or woman could own stock in a pharmaceutical company, mandate its products to the public, use the public's own tax dollars to pay for it without a vote or their consent, and participate in the profits of that forced exchange of goods and services is absolute government overreach, totalitarianism, and corruption. And the fact that those people are not being hauled away in handcuffs every day is a testament to how fucked up our government system is right now. And so I don't want to hear about guns when opioids, I mean, there are more people probably that died of adverse reactions to the COVID-19 vaccine, maybe, allegedly, probably, let's disclaimer that, then die from mass shootings, right? We absolutely know there are more opioid deaths than there are gun deaths in this country, right? Especially if we rule out suicides, which I have no problem with, by the way. I think it's your right. If you own a firearm, you want to shoot it on yourself. That's your personal freedom. Honestly, it's my favorite use of firearm in the history of firearms because it's a victimless crime. I would even argue that it's better than hunting.
I love your pro-suicide stance. That's great.
Yeah, it's your.
It's a victimless crime. You can't blame the gun when the guy grabs it and sticks it in his mouth and pulls the trigger. That 100%.
100%.
Funny.
So but it all becomes distraction. It all becomes It's all politicized. It's all weaponized. So I think you're 100% right. We have a perfect storm in this country. We don't have doors up anymore. So people that are really in pain or really struggling financially can literally open up their phone and stare into a better life that they'll never have in their mind.
Right.
It creates hopelessness. It creates despair. Then we sprinkle in the magic of SSRIs, which removes humanity and empathy from people's minds to make them more productive, right? Because at some point we thought that was a better trade-off. We said, oh, it's fine if they don't feel. Let's just make sure they can go to work and fax shit, right? So we've taken that away. So we've got, and then we have this rise of atheism and a loss of purpose. So you take godlessness, loss of purpose. You take constant reminder of inadequacy and failure through the lens of social media, and you sprinkle in the magic of emotion reducing SSRB. It's a cocktail for chaos, and that's the America we live in. It's not any one of those things by itself. You got to deal with all of those things. And listen, I love social media. It allows people like me to build a little fan base from obscurity. But for God's sakes, for the love of humanity, we should probably just throw it in the bin. We should throw it in the bin and figure it out. Back when the internet was websites and forums and email, we didn't have these problems. Now that people are literally, in the thread I posted earlier today, it was like, who knows what kind of young man I would grow up to be if the 18-year-old kids that I went to school with who had more money than me were doing burnouts on TikTok in Lamborghinis and shit. Like, it's not like the rich kid goes to a better school and drives like, I don't know, the high-end Honda Civic. It's like monster wealth and differences. It's like you know what I drove in high school? A Volkswagen Quantum. If a kid I fucking hated pulled up in a Bentley Flying Spur, man, I don't know what I would think or what I would do. And then if you put me on, and the other component of that, by the way, is how we've discussed and viewed abortion for the last 20 years. So now we've drawn in this. So we're giving people medication that makes them be less human, have less empathy, be more sociopathic. And now we also have this topic in society where we go, well, how valuable is human life really? I mean, is a clump of cells really worth saving over a woman's hopes and dreams? So we've diminished the value of human life for the last 20 years, the more pro-choice that we've gotten. And I think that's part of it. And I think there's an existential crisis related to the abortion debate that never gets talked about. And that's why I think we have to change it. The Constitution says life, liberty, pursuit of happiness in that order. My beef about abortion is not religious or spiritual. It's a constitutional one. An individual is marked in this country criminally by their unique DNA sequence. The minute something has its own unique DNA sequence, should be protected by the laws of this country and awarded the freedoms spoken about in the Declaration of Independence. The floor is yours, my good sir.
How is that not your platform speech to run in 2024? Seriously.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we have to look at like what has been the humanitarian cost of a woman's right to choose. I think it's an interesting discussion, right? I think it's interesting to think about it.
Absolutely. It's very interesting.
You look at these women. You look at women having abortion parties. So now so how can you literally? I look at like the actress Florence Pugh, right? I look at the actress Florence Pugh who just did like a whole thing on Instagram this morning. She's a brilliant actress. I love her work, but she did this whole thing this morning on how disgusting gun violence is and how tragic it is that all those children lost their lives in that shooting. And I bet if you asked her what her thoughts were on abortion at 40 weeks, she'd tell you it's a woman's choice. So the mental gymnastics and the compartmentalization you could have to say that the most innocent child in the world, one that's on the precipice of entering, about to be born, is nothing. And these children gunned down by a maniac is something. I mean, tell me how you believe those two things and you don't stop and look at yourself and go, boy, I have a really fucked up logic sense, right? I just don't understand it.
Well, you could have a gender reveal party and an abortion party at the same time.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you really could.
Is it BYOB? Do you bring White Claw? I mean, what do you bring to a gender reveal
Yeah.
/ abortion party. Hang on, we're gonna kill a girl.
Yeah. I mean, Derek, I got to be honest with you. It took everything in my power when the shooting happened. And this is like, some things need to be reserved for the stage, but I literally wanted to be like, I don't see what everybody's upset about. It's just 20 clumps of cells. You know, it's like, at what point are we going to hold these people accountable for their fucked
Right.
up view of humanity? Right? Either human
Well-
life has value or it doesn't. And listen, I haven't always been a staunch pro-life guy. It wasn't until it was pitched to me like this from somebody else who thought differently than me, conservative comedian Adam Yenzer, who laid this out for me, and I was like, dude, I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with you. And his really was more about like, well, if you're a libertarian and you believe in individual freedom, then why do you not believe in the individual freedoms of that unborn child and the potential that it has? The other stuff about there being this existential humanitarian crisis about the value of life is something that I kind of developed and started talking about as I was having the abortion discussion with people and realizing like, wow, there really is like this strange ability to compartmentalize when human life has value and when it doesn't. And listen, I'm not perfect either. A good example would be when that shooting happened in Pennsylvania. Do you remember the snow shoveling shooting? It was like an execution. These two neighbors were fighting over shoveling snow in each other's driveways. And then the one guy went in his house, came out with a rifle and executed the two neighbors in the street. And the Ring camera caught the whole thing. Disgusted me. It turned my stomach. I watched the video, turned my stomach. I couldn't shake it for a week and a half. Now, if you told me that those two people were molesting children, I literally would have stood over my computer and clapped, seeing the same horrific thing. And so there is something inherently strange about the way we as human beings can compartmentalize violence. I think we have to hold ourselves accountable to our inconsistencies with that. And I think that starts with taking a stand and saying we're going to do more to value human life, and where better to begin than in preventable pregnancies.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about it, when you put it in that perspective, like the whole Kyle Rittenhouse thing. And when you, when you see that, he shoots 3 people, kills 2, wounds another. And and you look at the people that he shot and killed. And again, I'm not advocating taking someone's life. I'm just saying, he shot and killed a couple of douchebags. I'm like, you know what? Society's probably better without them being around. And so,
well, by the way, let's clarify for the viewer: they weren't just douchebags; they were convicted sex predators and sex offenders. So, yeah, guys that were convicted douchebags. Derek, convicted
douchebags, exactly. Douchebags with actual records, not somebody that cheated at your poker game at your house, who you would also call a douchebag.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
This is like 2 levels. This is 3 levels up from douchebag. This is way higher. So it's true, because I can look at that and I go, and I have friends of mine that go, I can't believe that this guy Rittenhouse went ahead and did this and he got off. I'm like, he was innocent. It went to court. It was proved. He shot these people. It was self-defense, blah blah blah. And so but again, how we view life and how we can like you say, compartmentalize it or put certain labels on it and find out when it's important and when it's not is a crazy thing that goes on in all of our heads, for sure.
Yeah, and I could easily say this. If I were Kyle Rittenhouse's dad, he would have never been there. But if I were Kyle Rittenhouse's dad, I also wouldn't let him enlist in the military to go fight wars that aren't our business either. So there are a lot of things that, like, I can agree with it and go, my son would never be in that circumstance, because I don't believe anybody out there wins. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I think just by being out there, you're a fucking idiot, and you're risking your life for something that does not matter. You are literally becoming a pawn in the government's scheme of division to blow this country up. So, anybody who's out there, it's like, I would never tell people to not express their right to free speech and their right to make their voice heard. But if you're out in these protests and these mob things or whatever, you're a fucking idiot. Because it's never gonna do what you think it's gonna do. Not in today, with the media, what it is, and the ability to spin and take things out of context. People like my friend Brandon Strock, who went and and was a scheduled speaker at January 6th, filmed video from outside, basically was a bystander of everything that happened. And because he represents a major conservative movement of LGBTQ and people of color walking away from the Democratic Party, they threw the book at him and prosecuted him to the full extent of the law. And it's like, so there is no good to be had by being at these things, because it's going to get weaponized. It's going to get taken out of context. Look at the good people. There were good people on both sides thing. We're still hearing that, right? It's just like,
exactly.
Don't go to these things. I understand that you want to exercise in your patriotic duty, but there are better ways. And being at these things,
vote.
Vote, right? Vote or run.
Be an educated voter.
Yes,
don't just vote.
Voter.
Take 2 seconds for all the time you're going to spend planning to go to a protest or a rally, or to pack up your car and head out to wherever location is going to be, putting together some kind of a function that's going to suit your narrative. How about you take that time and read up on your politicians that are running for office? Look up their track records, find out what they stand for, find out what they believe in, see if it aligns with what you want, and don't just vote for somebody because they have a nice dog, or you like the way they treat their kids, or the way the commercial is where the guy's got the flag blowing in the background and he's serving apple pie at a picnic table. It's like, nobody does any research on any of this stuff.
Yeah, and it's to the point you made about Rittenhouse. The other guys that were there, guys who've pissed their life away and had no future. Imagine if that case went the other way and Kyle Rittenhouse's future was taken away, defending himself against fucking losers who had no future. That's who goes to these things. Losers who have no future, and they're pretending that they're fighting for something, but they're just agents of chaos, destruction, and disorder. They are not motivated by real hope for a better tomorrow. They're anarchists, and you're going down there and you're getting sucked in because you're having an emotional reaction to something. Want to have an emotional reaction to the death of George Floyd? Go to your local town hall meetings, work on police reforms, run for public office, hold police accountable in the ways that it matters. Vote for people that are going to put limitations on the budgets or put controls in place or more training or whatever. But there's no amount of throwing Molotov cocktails into a fucking Wendy's that's going to change this country for the better. Sorry.
I agree.
Did
completely.
it work? Did it work, by the way? Did we cure racism with the George Floyd riots, or did a white supremacist shooter go into a grocery store and kill a bunch of people? Like, that's what I think is so funny when guys like Joe Biden are going, we've got to do this in government. We've got to do this in government. You've been in government for 1,000 years and you haven't done any of it. Why would we believe that you're going to start now? Wake up, America. They don't care about you.
He's been in government since before slavery started.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how long Biden has been around.
I don't know if you know this, but Joe Biden was the person who nominated George Washington to be the first president.
He actually bought the blanket for Roosevelt at a thrift shop. People don't know that. Joe Biden actually did that.
Yeah, he used to be. He was Paul Revere. He was Paul Revere's cobbler. And not a lot of people don't know this, but he was side dick for Betsy Ross. A lot of people don't know that. In between, while she was stitching the flag up, he'd pipe her down.
See, people learn things on this podcast. It's not just entertainment. People actually draw little nuggets of knowledge out of this broadcast. They can get a chance to see you. Go ahead.
I feel so bad for your editor right now. I'm sure he's just making notations. We got to cut this. We got to cut this. So.
No, not at all. This absolutely cracks me up. If you get a chance, Josh Denny is going to be. Sean, pull up this poster of the script of the show that's coming up with Josh Denny, Gavin McGinnis, and also Anthony Cumia. Censored.tv presents. It's going to be in Orlando. The date on this, tell us about this event.
Yeah, June 25th, 7 p.m. Actually, you're the first to know. We just released 50 more VIP tickets for people. So if anybody watches this and they were thinking about going and you want to get VIP meet and greet tickets, get them right away, because I think once we do these extra 50, it's going to be done and capped. So people can get that, but tickets are going fast. Get them now. This will sell out. As far out as we are, we're already selling out of different groups of tickets. That's why we have to release more VIPs. But that's a good problem to have, right? And I think this to me is one of the most exciting gigs I've ever done, because I get to do it with two of my good buddies who have also are sort of the poster children for being canceled. And so, this should be a good time, and hopefully we'll set a precedent for, this idea, like you hear this all the time, Derek. They go, conservatives can't do comedy. I think if you come to this show in Orlando, even if you don't agree politically with myself, Gavin, or Anthony, I guarantee you'll have a good time and you'll laugh your ass off.
You're going to laugh your ass off. Anthony Cumia, a great guy. I have not had the pleasure of meeting Gavin, but Anthony is a great guy. I was on a show several times with Dave Landau, and it was always so much fun. So where can people get these tickets? Can they get it off of your website, or is there another site that they can go to? Is there a link that comes off of your site?
Yeah, it's linked everywhere on my social media. You can go to joshdennycomedy.com. It's right on the main page. You can click the link and get tickets there. And then we'll announce the venue the day of the show. So just to kind of keep things organized and orderly, and not have crazy protests and stuff out, because you got to do this now, right? You got to do this now as counterculture comedians. You have to kind of protect yourself. So we'll announce the venue the day of the show, and but tickets are limited. We're not doing I don't even know what sports teams are in Orlando. It's not the Magic anymore, right?
Orlando Magic.
Well,
that's it.
Is there? Yeah. So we're not doing an arena. So the tickets are limited. Definitely want to get them before they sell out.
No, it's going to be a great show. Orlando, Florida. If you're get down there. It's an easy city to fly into. Grab your tickets. Go and check out the show. Gavin McGinnis, Josh Denny, and Anthony Cumia. My friend, I cannot thank you enough. Follow Josh Denny Comedy. Go on his website. Follow his social media. His stuff is hysterical. And don't miss the show coming up in Orlando on June 25th. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it big time. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Derek. I appreciate it.
That's great, man. Josh Denny, joshdennycomedy.com. Go to his website and get tickets for that event coming up on June 25th with him, Gavin McGinnis, and Anthony Cumia. Also, check me out on the road. Going to be in the Midwest. Coming up in, Westchester, Ohio on June 8th at Laurie's Roadhouse Live. The Funny Bone in Des Moines, Iowa, June 10th and 11th with Dave Landau. And the Comedy Cellar at the Rio here in Las Vegas, June 27th through July 3rd. DerekRichards.com is my website. Follow me on social media. Also subscribe to the YouTube channel. See all the episodes of A Drink with Derek. Also check us out on Rumble as well. And my album, Double Down, recorded at Laughing Comedy Cafe in Fort Myers. Go ahead and snag that as well. iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon. Huge thanks to Sean Schultz, amazing producer down in Florida. Can't thank you enough, my friend. And to all the folks over at CTVA. And thank you for being here with me today. And to my guest, Josh Denny. We will see you next time here on A Drink with Derek. See ya. Bye.
You're watching conservative television of America, working hard to stick socialism where the sun don't shine.